and a warm welcome to all of you. A warm welcome to all of you and good afternoon on behalf of ISHA, EC and JISHA. And today we have met for the second webinar in this webinar series titled From Clutter to Clarity, Effective Approaches to Synthesizing Literature and Identifying Research Needs. I think this is a very relevant topic, and we have with us the young and dynamic Dr. Chanchal Chaudhary, who is going to be presenting on this. And I will give a brief introduction to her. Welcome, Dr. Chanchal. So, Dr. Chanchal is an assistant professor at Kasturba Medical College, Mangalore, Mahe, and she did her undergraduate and postgraduate from Manipal College of Health Professions, Manipal Academy of Higher Education, Manipal, and completed her PhD in January 2025. Her current research focuses on understanding the neurobiology of stuttering in bilinguals, uh, the use of evidence-based practices in stuttering management. She is the recipient of the Muktesh Award for the Best Paper in Speech for ISHACon, and she also is a recipient of 2 ICMR grants for her research projects. Currently, she received the International Travel Grant to attend the Oxford Stuttering and Cluttering Conference, which was held in September 2025. So we are quite excited to hear from you about this topic, and all over to you, Dr. Chanchal.
Thank you, ma'am. I'll just share my slides. Are you able to view my slides?
Yes, yes.
Hi. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. As introduced by ma'am, I'm Dr. Chanchal, and I'll be talking on this topic today, which is From Clutter to Clarity, Effective Approaches to Synthesize Literature and Identifying Research Needs. Before I begin, I want to thank Isha for giving me this opportunity to be here with all of you today. And I want to thank Pallavi ma'am for reaching out to me and to Deepa ma'am for coordinating this event. And I thank each one of you who has taken out time to join this webinar today. And also I thank my department for giving me permission to do this during work hours. So in my presentation today, I will be covering following topics. So we'll begin with seeing what is a literature review. We obviously know what it is, but it's just brief information about what it is, how we navigate through the amount of literature that is available online, some steps in conducting a thorough literature review, how we formulate questions, and following that, how we search through this literature in a systematic manner. And once we get all this information with us, what do we do with this, whether we summarize it or we synthesize it? Okay. Yes, and once we have this with us, how do we identify research gaps in it and the relevance of this literature in our national and international context? I'll not talk too much about it because once we go through the presentation, you'll understand how we actually look at gaps and needs and some key takeaway points. So what is literature review? It's a comprehensive survey of scholarly articles, books, other sources which are relevant to a particular topic or an area of our research. So it's not just, collection of summaries. Like previously we see even in our thesis and chapters, it was called a summary of literature. But it's not just a summary, plain and simple summary. It is a critical and analytical state, of the current knowledge. We have to understand what is happening in this literature for us to be able to find a gap and identify what we are going to study further. So the purpose of a literature review is to demonstrate understanding of a topic, identify some themes, debates, and specific people who are working in that area, and it will provide a foundation of our research. So just imagine this is what my room looks like. It usually doesn't look like this. So a student comes and tells me that they want to, do research, and we have no information what they want to do, how they want to do it. So me as a professor tells them, all literature is there in this room. You can find out, you can pick up whatever you want to, work on or study further. So when we look at this picture, we can understand, there's a lot of clutter in it. it would be very difficult for someone to find out where exactly to start, what to do, and how to, pick a topic that we want to work on. So it becomes very challenging to navigate through this clutter. So why it is challenging? Because there is information overload. What you saw in the picture previously, just the amount of literature that is available online, it makes it very difficult for us to find a clear picture. And also, this information is available, in fragments, or I would say silos. So what happens in this? For example, if I want to look for a topic, a particular intervention technique, I start looking in my speech and hearing journals and I search there, but that intervention may have been used in some other discipline. So this fragments how it occurs, it becomes very difficult for us to find some connections and, move forward. So also once we get this information, the main risk is to, simply summarizing that this person did that, this person did this. And instead of analyzing connections or synthesizing the literature that we have gotten. So our goal always should be to move from very simple set of summaries to something which is more critical, integrated, and gives a good understanding of the topic. Okay, so some of the most common challenges we see in literature review, as I've been talking in the past two slides, it's the overwhelming amount of information. And second, very important thing is the quality of information. We have a lot of information, but we don't always know whether everything that exists online is good. Okay, so whether the journals that they are published in are good, whether the study was done following all the scientific ethical guidelines, we don't know the quality of that information that is available online. And once we get it, it sometimes becomes challenging for us to organize. Like I think when I was a PhD student, I would say I was quite well organized. I had very good sorting skills, arranging skills. But now I think once I've started working, it is all on my desktop. I don't know how to organize it well. So this lack of organization also becomes a challenge when we are looking at literature. And another challenge is subjectivity and bias. For example, if someone comes to me and I tell them, you read only my articles, those are good, nothing else which is available online is good. And also when we want to find something in literature, okay, the effect of something, I would also be biased towards finding the studies that support what I'm thinking. Okay, so there's always this, subjectivity and bias available, happens in our literature reviews. So all these challenges again make it very difficult for us to identify any gaps in the literature. We don't organize it well. We don't know whether quality is good. And now we still, I think in 2025, we have good meta-analysis, systematic reviews that are available. But one challenge with those reviews and analysis is we don't know whether they are up to date. So many of the authors fail to update them. So in 2025, if you're reading a systematic review which was published in 2000 and the authors have not updated it, we still, we don't know the current knowledge on that particular topic, what is happening. These are some common challenges that we face in a literature review. So then how do we navigate? So before we begin searching for literature, uh, we should always think of forming a good research question. Okay. Once we have this in the following slides, I'll be showing you some tips how to do that. So once we have this research question, we can search the literature and then synthesize it. So these are our main steps that I'll be discussing my presentation on today. Okay, so how do we navigate? As mentioned, first and foremost, we form a good research question, because this research question is something that is going to form a backbone of our good research. And also it will help us identify the problem which we have to study, and it will guide us, what methodology to use, who to study, where to do this study. So this question is very, very important for us to start doing our literature search. So initially, yes, it can be a bit challenging for us to write an excellent research question. So we can start with something very broad and then focus on moving to something which is narrow and specific. Okay, write it in your own words and write it as completely as possible. So I can share, I don't know about others, but I can share my experience with this. It was pretty challenging with my supervisor that, I would go and tell a question, but it would not sound like a question. And then when I come back, I read it, I know why he sent me back. And then I would write it again. And, it took, and my supervisor was like, we will only start research once you have a good question with you or what you want to, study in your study. So unless we don't have a good question, we cannot start with, searching where to look for it. Otherwise, it'll all be like the previous picture. There's a lot of clutter. What to identify, we wouldn't know. Okay. So, and at the end of your research, you should get an answer to your question. Okay. Whether this works or not, at the end, with my literature or when my research is over, I should get an answer. Yes, it works, or no, it does not work. So, this is something which is available. It is not something that I have made, it's available in literature. We use finer criteria for forming a good research question, which says a good research question, the question should be feasible, it should be interesting, it should be novel, it should be ethical and relevant. So, what this is, when I say feasible, we have to sit and think like whether in the next, if it's a PG thesis, it's probably 1.5 year. So in that time amount, whether I'll be able to, finish this work, or if it's a PhD thesis, how long it is, or as a faculty, we are told to do extra research. So how feasible it is for us to go to the field and do this data collection, whether we can get adequate number of subjects, whether we have adequate technical expertise, whether we know, when today we can start it, but down the line, if we find some challenges, whether we have enough expertise to overcome those challenges or understand what is happening with the research. And it should be affordable in time as well as money. Okay. We can make a lot of claims. We do think that I will do such a big, huge thing and bring change. But do we really have more than time? Do we really have money to do that? Okay. And scope of this study, whether it addresses what it, whether it's in the current context, what is the scope of this study? And second one I feel is extremely important, whether it is interesting. Interesting to whom? It is should be interesting to the investigator and others, like whoever is involved in this study. Maybe the supervisor should be interested in the topic, and the student, or if I'm doing it, I should at least like the topic enough to do this research, because motivation and curiosity are very important for long-term sustainability. So down the line, like if I'm forced to work on a topic which I don't like, or just because my supervisor likes, or someone has told me finish this work and give it to me, initially we may say yes, 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 but down the line, in just a few months, will not be interested carrying forward this research, and it should be novel. Okay, so in novel, it means, does it address something new? But it's okay if it's not always new, but it should always add some new information. Okay, it's not like doesn't need to be a groundbreaking study with absolutely something that no one has done before. Even if it is done before, your research should add something new in sort of a, whether you are changing a criteria, whether you're building upon the existing knowledge. Okay, and you should not just simply replicate what is available. Okay, you should see whether, changing the context, whether the study still works, whether, a new setting or a new method that you're using, that way we can think of replicating, but not exactly copying what is, existing online. And very important is ethical. It should follow scientific ethical guidelines. And just for our work to be done, just for our research to be done, we should not keep these ethical points away from research. It is also as important as, anything we do in research. Is one of the most important thing that I consider in research. And second is risk benefit ratio. So in our behavioral studies, we do have risks, but they are not that significant. But even if they are mild, you know risk, you should clearly justify and specify what those are. For example, even sitting for a administration of a test material for 3 to 4 hours can cause fatigue to certain individuals. Okay, so that is also a risk of the study. So we should always analyze this risk benefit ratio and see whether they are proportional. Always take informed consent and maintain privacy of these clients. So do not, like, in world of social media, we end up posting our patients, their information online. So we should be very mindful when we do these things. So your question, should not, when we are forming a question, we should see that it should not impinge on someone's privacy. And also it should be relevant, okay, to the current scientific knowledge, clinical practice. It should bring about some change in public health or policy, and how it impacts the future research. We have to always think when we are forming a good research question. Okay, so this is what comes under the final criteria for forming a research question. So these are some additional points. Okay, so when you are forming a question, make sure you have the population mentioned in it. Make it as specific as possible. Avoid words or terms, don't make it too wordy. Remove words that, don't add any meaning to it. Stick to what will be studied and not the implications. Like sometimes we'll say, if I give treatment to this, it will definitely or significantly improve the stuttering frequency. Okay. So we should not jump onto implications, because that is what research is. After the research, we'll know whether it works or not. So we should avoid, putting this in our question. And also name the variables in order, like if we have primary and secondary outcome measures. Like for example, for me, if it is stuttering frequency and naturalness, a primary and secondary outcome, I would name it like that in my research question. And avoid words, it will significantly change or it will prove that it definitely works. Okay, and avoid using, different terms for the same variable. I'll just show you a couple of one example for this. Okay, so this question that I've written here, it is violating everything that is said in the previous slide, right? So if we see here, I'll just read it out, and while I'm reading it, you will understand that it's a boring, irrelevant, too wordy question. Okay, does therapy in one language significantly make bilingual people who stutter speak better in all their languages and prove that fluency transfers from one language to other? Okay, too many words, we can see language is repeated. It's one language from other language, so it becomes a bit difficult for us to understand what we are trying to study. A better version of it would be, how does treatment in the dominant language influence cross-linguistic generalization of fluency in bilingual children who stutter? So if you see the above question, we can see it says people who stutter. I don't know whether it's everybody, children, adults, but in second one, we have tried to refine that. Okay, and also we're just talking about cross-linguistic generalization, which is a better terminology than talking about, fluency transfers from one language to other. It still can be better, I think, but I think just for the purpose, I've put it like this. So I hope you appreciate the difference between these two questions that I've written here. Okay, so now we're talking about research questions. Once we have this research question, and don't think initially it may not be excellent, but at least, make it, use the criteria that we have mentioned before and try to frame the question in that way. And after we have a question, we start looking for literature. Okay. If you go back to that clutter picture, now at least the person who's looking in that room has an idea that I'm only going to pick up papers that say particular that are into this area. So before also when I've spoken about this topic, people say, can AI do my work? And now we have so many AI tools. Do we literally have to sit and do this? So I don't know if your chat box is enabled, but if it is enabled, can you look at the picture and see a couple of spelling mistakes on this slide? I'm not sure if it is enabled. Okay. Okay, so yes, I can see some charts, but yeah, you can say PubMed spelling is wrong. Anything else you can see on this slide? Yes, and one thing you've identified PubMed spelling. Anything else? Spelling of synthesis, excellent. Okay, so here if you see the spelling of PubMed as well as synthesis. So I just want to say that I have not made this mistake. AI has made this mistake. So when I tried that I'm going to be talking about these two things, I put this input in one of the tools, and this is the result I got. And then I still typed that, can you please fix the spelling errors in this? and again and again and again, this is the result that we got. So yes, we can use AI, but in the future slides, now coming slides, you will see how we cannot completely rely on that. Okay. So if you let's just see, yeah. Okay. So how to navigate now? I have a question, and how do I search for it? You can. I've tried to put this, expand this here. So first we start at, locating the sources. Where do I have to search? We identify certain keywords that are going to help us search, and we triage. So triage is sort of like, how in emergency they prioritize, patients. So that way we prioritize and select what to do and reject what we don't need. We extract the data, we review this data critically, we aggregate the findings, and when we are synthesizing, we can generate some themes, and we can use that for synthesis. And once we have this, we have reached that T, when we are able to synthesize the data which is available to us. If you do it in a systematic manner and you reach that stage, you can clearly see the gaps that are available in the literature. Okay, and then you see whether this is what you really wanted to do. Go back to your question and check and relate it to your research question. And then you go and explain what exactly you're going to do in this gap or need that you have identified. So I'm not going to say one by one here. I've just combined. So we can go through this, it won't, I've combined this so for better understanding. Now imagine yourself standing here. Okay, this is a jungle, and we don't know, it's a pretty dense forest, right? And we don't know where to navigate, where to reach. So this is what we have been talking. Like right now, even if you have a question with you, the literature looks like this. I don't know where to go. Yes, I can see some route, but whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. But if you have done your literature search in a good manner, a systematic manner, it acts as a map or a guide for you to navigate through this dense literature that is available online. Okay. So we have a question. Now I know that, if I do my literature search thoroughly or in a manner, it would help me, navigate through this dense forest. So where do I go and look for it? There are many sources, and some of it, when you're starting, you can start with a broader search. You do a scoping search, and where do we first go? We go and type it in Google Scholar. You can also look at PubMed, which will give you some information. Okay, and this is a broad search. First, I'm just seeing whether my topic is making sense and what literature is available on it. Okay, so once I type it in Google Scholar, you will understand how much literature exists on that particular topic. Okay, and then we spoke previously about quality. Then I see how many RCTs are done, how many systematic reviews are done, meta-analysis, whether people have generated evidence on this particular topic. So based on this scoping search, I start building my search strategy. Okay. So to build my search strategy, I have to, rely on generating some keywords for my search. So these keywords I can divide into using the PICO criteria. Now we also use TNS, but most commonly we use the PICO criteria, which is our population, intervention, comparison, and outcome. So within each of these domains, I will start building or adding up my keywords. So when you have done that broader search, you will see that journal articles give us some keywords, right? You can take some keywords from there as well. And also as a clinician or as a person who's wanting to do research, you would know population. For example, mine, I know it is stuttering. It is also people who stutter. It is also adults who stutter. So I can use this as keywords for my population. And then we identify databases where I'm going to say. So most of the articles that are published that say how to do a thorough literature search, they say at least 3 good electronic databases. And they also mention which are these. Some of them I'm going to show you in the coming slides. Okay. So when I make keywords, I use Boolean operators, and I search what are these Boolean operators. Okay, they are and or not. Okay, so if I say, for example, stuttering and anxiety, I can only get results that contain both of these keywords. Whereas I say or stuttering or anxiety, any article that has used, either stuttering or anxiety, that article will pop up when I do my search. And when I say only, stuttering, not anxiety, so I will get articles that say, keyword A, but it will exclude anything with keyword B. So most commonly we use and or and build our search words based on that. So this is just an example. This is how I do my search. For example, if you see my search string here, I have used, this is my population search string. I've built it here, stuttering, stammering, adults with stuttering, PWS, stutter, disfluency. All these I know, are main components that I want to search. This is an intervention. Here I have not used any comparison group. So it's up to you. If you have a comparison group, like for example, people who stutter, people who do not stutter, you can add keywords for that as well. So this is my intervention, and then we have, outcomes. They should have studied stutter syllables, SSI-4, severity, disfluencies. So you can see these results. I've used or in between each of this, like in population, I've used or. But when I combine, I want articles that have used stuttering and TDCS and one of those outcomes. So if I see in the end, when I build my search strategy, I get about 14 results only, which may talk about TDCS as an intervention for people who stutter and have used one of the outcomes that I have previously defined. So this is just an example of one of the databases. Just for the purpose of this presentation, I've added it here. Okay. So as I said, minimum 3 we have to search. These are electronic databases. The most of the articles say you search in PubMed, Medline, Embase. Okay. And here, this is one thing. If you've not used it before, Sinal is one database where a lot of our allied health literature is available. So you can look for journal articles or relevant articles on this as well. Okay. And as I've told, Google Scholar can be used for a broader search. We also look for gray literature on college websites, and there is a site for it called Open Gray. There you can look for gray literature. Gray literature is something which is not published yet, but it exists somewhere on the net. Okay, so these are some of the databases. You can search for good systematic reviews and meta-analysis on Cochrane Library. We have APA, PsycInfo, Sinhal, Embase, LZIP, PubMed, Medline, and you can also look for, studies that are ongoing, registered. Okay, means it's not published yet, but someone has started doing that study. So you don't have to, redo it or waste your time doing that study if somebody has registered it here. So for studies which are being done in the US, you can see clinicaltrials.gov. Whereas in India, it is a requirement for us from our ethics committee to register our trials on CTRI. So you can see if any study on your topic is going on there. Okay, where else you can go? Gray literature, Open Gray. And in Indian thesis and publication, if you want, you can look at Shodh Ganga as well. Use the same keywords that we have built previously and put them in any of these databases. Some other sources are there. We have college websites. Okay, college library resources are available. You can look there. And some other unpublished work may be available on as conference proceedings. Okay, so this is just an example of page from our university. They give us access to, I think, a lot, and we are very grateful for that. A lot of databases we have access to. You can see here, these are some of the online databases that we can access. And this is our, library search page. So here you can see here, same thing, Picot search is there. I type the same keywords. And if it is there in any of these databases, articles pertaining to this, it will pop up on my system. Okay, so once I get these studies, what do I do? Okay, I have to sort this, right? I said, like, we can get this, but a challenge always remains is how to arrange it. So triage, that is where triage comes. It's like sorting and prioritizing. This is important. That other thing may not be that important. So we use, we have searched using inclusion, exclusion criteria. So when I'm looking through these studies, I know this is relevant to me, this is not relevant. You can use Excel. So I think when I was a first year PhD student, we did not have, such advanced data tools. So I did my first systematic review in Excel. Okay, so I used to just type everything and send it to my co-authors, and they would just, fill it with red, the ones they want to exclude. So that is where we started. And in 5 years, I think we have reached where we have a lot of advanced tools to do this work for us. So we can use Excel. We have referencing softwares like Mentally and EndNote. You can use those as well. And there are some things like if you see here, Ryan is one software. Here you can upload search from many databases together and then remove the duplicates, because in different databases you will get some studies that will repeat. You remove those duplicates, okay, and then start your screening process. I'll have a screenshot of this. I'll show it to you in the next slide. Okay, and extract what is important and relevant to your study. Just reject what is not based on your inclusion and exclusion criteria. This is another tool that I used, okay, to sort of arrange my literature. So if you see here, this is a screenshot of Ryan, one of the reviews that we are doing. It's a systematic review. Okay, title I've just hidden because it's not published yet. Okay, so here we can see imported references are 1905. We found 594 duplicates, and each article will be there, and it's information, it's abstract, where it's published. All that information will be available. You can invite reviewers to screen. For example, if your supervisor is somewhere away, you can just send them the link and they can see whether you are doing a proper search. So usually we use it for systematic review, but I use systematic search for every study that I do. Okay, so this is what I said, Research Rabbit. So here you can see some of what I have saved, TDCS stuttering, some articles on tool validation. So if you click on this, and one thing for about this is in real time also you can search. You don't have to upload it there. You can just type the topic there and it will show all the articles, and you can save, write itself, make your folders and use this as for your management of your literature. Okay, so once I get this data, what do I do with this? Okay, how do I aggregate it? I'm reviewing it now. How do I aggregate it? You can either think of making a summary, okay, or you can synthesize it. So when I say summary, it helps us understand what has happened, right? For example, we're just listing out the studies and we are just seeing what is happening. For example, Smith in 2020 found X, Lee found Y, Weber found Z. Okay, so here, when you just summarize it like this, the readers, or as myself, when I'm looking, I won't be able to get any connection. But when I synthesize, okay, so they have done it, so what? Okay, so we can, analyze it sort of a way that early research focused on something and then later research moved on to something else. It sort of builds an argument for us, right? So you can use some analysis to understand this. Okay, so data synthesis is actually a process of combining and condensing information derived from data extraction. Okay, so when I do this, I'll be able to understand whether it has any trends, whether the literature that I got has any pattern. Okay, it should not just be a plain summary. So taxonomy, we know how we, just organisms, how we, put them or categorize them. So it's basically a science of classification. Same thing we can use here. We can use some codes. We can transform the data that we have collected into some meaningful cohesive categories. I said, like, in 2011, this person did this, 2012, this did. Instead of that, we try to understand the concepts and the themes in the literature that we found. Okay, so codes are concepts that will link data with theory. They also act as conceptual labels. And we think that all this thematic analysis and all this we only do for qualitative. It's not there. We do it for literature, whether it's qualitative for your qualitative study, quantitative study. You can synthesize the data to understand what themes are emerging, what people have done, what you can do further. Okay, so you can organize it based on themes. For example, concepts, debates, recurring topics, what is most commonly occurring and what is effective. Or you can arrange it in a chronological order. Okay, that is also pretty easy. You see evolution, what was traditional and what is contemporary. You can also arrange your literature in that way. Okay, identify seminal works. So I don't say only 2025, 2020, forget everything that has happened before. We have to look at the hallmark studies. Who started it? what is the trend, what happened over the years in this particular topic, okay? Or you can group these studies based on method, like one particular intervention everybody has used, those go in a separate folder. Someone has done something else, those go in separate, or a particular, method that they have used, or tools or data analysis that they have used. You can group them in this way as well. So once I synthesize the data and try to understand whether it has any pattern or not, okay, I will start getting some picture of, what lies ahead, what I can do next. So another way to understand the data is you can use mind maps or concept maps. I'll not go so much into detail of what these are, but mind map is something like, when I am making my own notes, we draw, right? Like I'll write one word and make some, branches coming out of it. Mind map is something like that. It focuses on a single concept, and, it just links the main note with some keywords. Okay, it's very good for brainstorming, gives me idea for what I can study. But a concept map is something, that tells us, a relationship between multiple concepts and ideas. And also, this is very good for structured learning. I'll show you an example. You will understand the difference between these two better. So, this is what a concept map looks like, where I just say that this is the concept and these things are emerging out of it. Whereas mind map links this from, different ideas for you to be able to synthesize the data. So this is from one of our study that we did recently. We wanted to see, acute aphasia rehab, what are the challenges that communication partners face, who are these communication partners, and also what strategies are available to enhance communication. So if you see here, this picture that I've shown you is what looks like a, you know sort of a mind map. We just saw, this is what we began with, this is the question that we had in mind. And when we did, brief our scoping search, we got these, that literature is divided into these domains in this topic. Okay, and this is what we ended up doing. This is a concept map that we made. Okay, this is made using one of the softwares. I don't remember now, but I can maybe tell you later. So this is what we understood, that this is the literature exists, where connections are there and where there are no connections. So we were able to find out what challenges they face and what these communication partners do to overcome these challenges. Okay, so this way you can understand. So once you write it, you make it. Okay, you will understand. Okay, once you do the synthesis, it will reveal what is known, and in turn it will eliminate what is missing. Okay, so once you have arranged it in this, like this was a very good thing for us. When we put it in this way, we were able to understand, what was the problem that was not adequately answered by current studies. And when you see this gap, once you have arranged it nicely, you'll be able to see that gap clearly. And this is where your contribution to research will begin. Okay, so this is how we, after our thorough search, we identify where the gap lies. Okay. So there are several types of gaps that exist. We have knowledge gaps, we have conceptual gaps, we have methodological gaps, we have data gaps, we have contextual gaps. So as name suggests, knowledge gap would be something where, people have failed to understand a particular topic in terms of, the knowledge that exists on that topic. Conceptual would be, there is a disconnect between the theory and practice. Yes, concepts exist, but we are not able to apply it, practically, or people have failed to understand the framework that has existed on that particular topic. Methodological gap is, have all the studies used one method, whether they have changed it or whether there is a scope for us to use a new method. Okay. Data or empirical gaps is there is not much evidence on that particular thing. Okay, and context or setting gap, has this phenomenon been studied in a particular population, culture, country, language? Okay, so I tell you my recent experience with gap. I wanted to do virtual reality and stuttering. So I did search the literature thoroughly, same way I've told you. And I realized that, there were studies up to 2006, 2007. And then for a good 10 to 14 years, we did not have any studies on this topic. And then again, recently from 21, 22, we have studies on this. Okay, so I was very confused that, what happened? Is it something, that should not be used with people who stutter? Or, what is this topic? I was not able to understand. So when I So now when at the conference that they mentioned I attended, I went and spoke to people like, is it a good topic? Is it worth exploring? So people told me that, people who were doing research on this, they actually lost funding and that is why they were not working on it. So the gap still existed, but in the literature, I could not find what was happening. Okay. So just because there was no evidence on this for those 10 years, I was wondering whether the topic is still good, worth exploring. So once you have identified the gap, you go back to your question and see whether it aligns with your goals. And you build an argument or a storyline that supports your gap. Okay. So this is from my thesis. We saw, whether stuttering is motor, whether stuttering is linguistic. So we just started writing. Yes, we have some data on motor. We have very few studies on linguistic. Okay. And what the studies say. So this way we write a narrative. Okay. If you're not writing it, you can also think in your head that this is what existed. It will give you some insights, to support whether you can proceed with that particular topic. Okay. So in national versus international context, I would say we are in a country which is linguistically and culturally diverse. So one gap that always remains for us is gap in context. Okay, so these studies, most of the research is heavily skewed and it is weird. Okay, so when I say weird, what does it mean? Not that the study is weird, but it is done in a Western population. Sorry, there is a spelling error there. Western, it is done on educated people. It is done in industrialized context, rich people belonging to that segment, and also where they follow democratic political thoughts. So this most of this research is weird. So in India, we have to fill that gap by using this, in our population. So when you read a particular article that you got from your search, you see whether it holds true in your national context. Okay, whether you can apply it locally or a specific cultural context, and how do these findings from an international context support the existing literature. Okay. So the gap, when you identify this gap alone, the contextual gap can also be a foundation for a very strong research contribution. Okay. So again, whether, if you go online, you will see multiple, um, I would say, people or, software tools that say, yes, you forget about it, AI will do your work. This is an example, this is also another very good tool, Elicit. Okay. If you have a membership for it, most of these tool works very well if you have a membership. Otherwise, it'll give you sort of vague responses. So here I just typed in my research question. How does treatment and this is what I showed you previously, right? Forming our finer criteria and some do's and don'ts. I made this question. So it is a great question. Okay. So I just typed in this, it will tell you whether your question is good or not good. And then it will give you relevant literature on that particular topic. Okay. So you can see treatment and dominant language influence cross-linguistic generalization. So you can see here some of the studies. This is by Santosh sir. This is our study. And many, whatever literature exists on this, it will be available here. Okay. You can see here 10 studies found on this topic. But again, whether we can leave it to AI, I don't know. Because if you see here, this is what was the summary of the study. Okay. So it says, this is my study. It says bilingual children, but actually my population was adults. Okay. So I don't know whether we can completely rely, but yes, this can help you navigate through the existing literature. You can go and read these studies. So yes, there is a study done by all these people on this topic, but what it is summarizing is not apt. Okay. So this is here we have to use our knowledge and understanding. So I will I will say whatever I know. I tried to present to you, but I have not achieved so much in life and I'm still learning. So whatever I have learned in the past few years, I tried to tell you. I'm not an expert. I definitely want to become one day. I'm still learning. And what I started, I told you my first research that I started was in Excel, this first review that I did. And now in so many years, we have access to Covidence, paid version of it. We have Ryan softwares. I just showed you some of these, softwares that are available. It does make our work easy, helps us organize. But I am still learning. I've just told you what I have learned till now. Okay. So the key takeaways from today's presentation are a good literature review starts with a good question. Okay. So don't just blindly go and searching for it, because you will be lost in the amount of information that exists. And literature review is an analysis. Look at it in terms of synthesis and not just a summary. What is synthesis? It's about building new connections and arguments through themes. I showed you some ways how you can do it. You can organize it thematically, chronologically, or in a methodological manner to build your argument. Okay. And your goal of synthesis, once you do these steps, you will clearly see, what is not done and what is the gap. And very important, AI is not a substitute for human intelligence. It's just a tool that will amplify human creativity as well as ingenuity. Okay. So use it. I'm not saying don't use it, but when you're using it, be mindful of what it is doing, and always cross check what is generated, whether it actually exists or not. Okay. And your research begins where existing literature ends. What we did all this. So this was what I presented, was just the first part of research. Once you do this, your actual work of doing the research begins. Okay, so these are my references, and you can ask me as many questions as you want, but I don't know if I'll be able to answer all of them. Okay, so yes, you're free to ask any questions, and I hope you enjoyed the presentation.
It was an excellent presentation, Dr. Chanchal,
Thank you,
as
ma'am.
you're getting reviews in the messages as well. And I really liked the way your slides made some points very, very easy to take. And as Dr. Rashmi Bhatt has commented that she has really liked your acronyms, and I completely second her. Also,
Thank
I
you, ma'am.
feel that the last webinar and this webinar go in tandem, because we learned last time how AI can be useful, and
Perfect.
yet the speaker, Dr. Prabhu, had very clearly said how a hybrid approach is good. And the
Yes.
same thing has been further, elaborated in this presentation as well. Uh, I request everyone to type in their questions. We have some time for questions. So we're getting a lot of positive comments, like excellent presentation, very accurately stated the pros and cons of using AI. Thank you so much for sharing your insights.
So this you can ask. Okay, I'll try to answer.
I
This
think,
doesn't mean you cannot not ask questions.
yes, I think you made the topic very, very crystal clear. In terms of you gave us a roadmap, surely each topic has its own nuances and you have to identify the gaps, you have to do your own work. But I think this was a very, very useful roadmap as to how to move from clutter to clarity. That was presented with utmost clarity. Thank you so
Thank you,
much
ma'am.
for your
Yes.
insightful presentation and beautiful slides, Dr. Chanchal. I would also like to thank, I think there is one question.
Very fast.
Okay, there is a question by Dr. Santosh Maruti about your thoughts. When do you do systematic review and when do you do meta-analysis?
Okay. When actually the ultimate goal should be to do systematic review and a meta-analysis. But what we see is, once specifically in our behavioral studies, what we see is there are a lot of RCTs or primary studies that exist. But many times, because there is so much variation in these primary studies, we're not able to you know put them together and do a further analysis on it. Okay. So the goal should always be to do a systematic review and followed by a meta-analysis. But when we do this, we see there's a lot of variations on, outcomes that they have used. The method is absolutely different or things like that. When we won't be able to do a meta-analysis. Okay, if when you're doing a systematic review, always plan to do a meta-analysis, but you can, if that is not the goal, you can do a lot of other type of reviews are there. There are umbrella reviews, there are scoping reviews. If you just want to summarize the literature, you can use one of those. And I think I've learned some more things of systematic review from Sir only, so I think Sir should know the answer also.
think we have come towards the end of today's topic. And again, I wish to thank Dr. Chanchal for an excellent presentation. I also wish to thank Isha for providing us uh, a platform for this kind of activities. And Dr. Namita has a question not related to research, very interesting topic, VR and stuttering. The clinical applications are crucial. So whether you would like to comment on that.
Um, yes, we we just got funding for this project. So once we start the work, I think I can get in touch with ma'am and see. It is also in adolescents with stuttering. So once we start working on it, maybe I can get in touch with ma'am. So yes, I understand the effects of screen time on children. Uh, but again, we'll have to. It's for right now. It's for the purpose of research. So I think I will just say that for now.
There is one more question. How is meta-analysis different from systematic review?
So in systematic review, I said whatever we have done till now, that forms the process of getting, searching and getting the primary studies in a systematic manner. Once I have those studies, I extract the data from it. Okay. So for example, if I have percentage of stuttered syllables, I got 10 studies from my literature's review. I extract that data of percentage of stuttered syllables from these 10 studies, and then I do an analysis. Okay. So we do an analysis for the meta-analysis is that whether the evidence that is existing today from these review studies, whether it's positive, whether it is negative. Okay. So we have, in this, we have analysis like we get funnel plots, are all statistical analysis, which will tell whether the current evidence, supports a particular intervention or not. Okay, so that's more of the quantitative part of it. Systematic review followed by quantitative analysis will be your meta-analysis.
Ma'am, let's take a group photo with videos on for the record.
Okay. Okay. Requesting all to keep their videos on, please, for the photographs.
So if you have any questions, my email ID is here. Please feel free to email anything. So whatever I have learned, I would love to help you with it and teach you further. So you can note it down and send me any questions that you have later as well.
Very well presented, Dr. Chanchal. Congratulations.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for inviting me to do this. I was waiting when Isha will call me, so thank you.
This was Deepa ma'am's. All credit goes to Deepa ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
She's been planning all excellent webinars.
Have you taken? Shweta, are you there? Take a screenshot.
Yes, ma'am. I'm checking it out.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Shweta, is the photo taken? Then I'll end the. Hello, Shweta?
Yes, ma'am. I've taken, ma'am.
You have taken, huh?
Yes.
Thank you, everybody, and hope to see you soon for the next webinar. We will post about it soon. Thank you so much. We'll call it a day today.